There is a moment in every life that doesn't arrive with noise, doesn't knock loudly, doesn't announce itself with signs in the sky. Yet everything inside you knows something has shifted, and this moment right now carries that same quiet intensity, the kind that feels almost invisible on the outside but unmistakable within your chest, like a subtle current running beneath your thoughts, slowing you down just enough to notice that you are not the same person you were even a short time ago. Because something in you has grown tired of noise, tired of chasing, tired of proving, and is now leaning toward something deeper, something still, something that feels less like effort and more like remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. And if you stay with this feeling instead of pushing past it, you begin to sense that this is not the beginning of something new but the return of something ancient within you, a part of you that has always known the way but waited patiently while you gathered experience, strength, and understanding through every challenge you thought was only there to break you, when in truth each one was shaping your awareness, sanding down the false layers, loosening the grip of old fears, preparing your inner vision to see beyond surfaces, because awakening does not come like lightning, it comes like dawn, slowly, gently, until one day you realize the darkness you lived in was only the absence of your own attention, and now your attention is turning inward, not to escape the world but to finally meet yourself without distraction, without roles, without masks, and that meeting changes everything, because you start noticing the space between your thoughts, the quiet underneath your emotions, the observer behind your reactions. And in that space you discover you are not as fragile as you believed, not as limited as you were told, not as lost as you feared. You are awareness itself, watching the story unfold. And this realization does not make you withdraw from life. It makes you more present in it, more grounded, more real. Because when you stop trying to be someone, you finally begin to be. And there is a strength in that which cannot be shaken by outside storms, a calm that does not depend on circumstances, a clarity that does not need constant reassurance. And maybe lately you've felt a distance growing between you and the old ways you used to cope. The old habits that once felt necessary now feel heavy. The conversations that once filled time now feel empty. The noise that once distracted you now feels overwhelming. And this is not disconnection. This is refinement. Your system adjusting to a higher level of sensitivity, a deeper level of perception. Like your inner senses are recalibrating, learning to recognize truth not by volume but by resonance. And as this happens, you may feel moments of stillness that seem unfamiliar, pauses where you don't know what to do next, spaces where your usual impulses don't immediately arise. And these spaces are sacred, because in them the old patterns lose their control, and something new, something more aligned with your essence, has room to emerge. And though the mind may call this uncertainty, your deeper self recognizes it as transition, the crossing from a life run by unconscious momentum into a life guided by conscious presence. And presence changes how you move, how you speak, how you choose. You begin to act not from fear of missing out, but from alignment, not from pressure, but from clarity, not from lack, but from quiet sufficiency. And this shift may not be visible to others right away, but you feel it in the way you breathe a little deeper, react a little slower, observe a little more, judge a little less. Because you are starting to see that every person, including the past versions of you, has simply been moving with the level of awareness available at the time. And compassion naturally grows where judgment used to live, first for yourself, then for others. And this softening is not weakness. It is strength without armor, awareness without defense. And from this place your intuition becomes clearer, not as loud commands but as subtle knowings, gentle nudges, quiet clarity about what feels right and what no longer does. And the more you trust these inner signals, the more life begins to feel like cooperation rather than struggle, like a dance rather than a fight. Because awakening is not about escaping the human experience. It is about inhabiting it fully with consciousness. Feeling joy without clinging. Feeling pain without drowning. Acting without losing yourself in the action. And as this deepens, you may notice that what once felt urgent now feels optional. What once felt like identity now feels like clothing you can put on or take off. And beneath all of it, there is a stable sense of being. Simple, aware, alive. And this is the ground you have been searching for in achievements, relationships, and recognition, only to find it was always here, waiting under the surface of your attention. And now that you are touching it, even briefly, something in you relaxes, because you no longer need the world to constantly confirm your worth. You begin to move from an inner fullness rather than an inner gap. And from this fullness, your actions become cleaner, your words more honest, your boundaries clearer, your connections more real. And though challenges will still come, they meet a different version of you now, one who sees them not only as obstacles but as mirrors, showing where attachment still hides, where fear still whispers, where growth is still unfolding. And instead of collapsing or resisting, you start to meet life with curiosity, asking not, "Why is this happening to me?" but "What is this revealing within me?" And this question opens doors that force never could, because awareness transforms from the inside out. And this is the shift you are in, subtle yet profound, quiet yet irreversible. The movement from living on the surface of yourself to living from your depth. And once you taste this depth, even for a moment, you cannot fully go back to sleep. Something in you stays awake, watching, learning, softening, strengthening all at once. And this awakening does not demand perfection. It invites presence, again and again, in small, ordinary moments, in breaths, in pauses, in honest choices. And through these simple acts of awareness, your life slowly reorganizes around what is real, what is aligned, what is true for you. And this is how transformation actually happens. Not in dramatic flashes, but in steady remembrance. Not in becoming someone else, but in uncovering who you have always been beneath the noise. And the fact that you can feel even a trace of this now means the shift is already underway. Quietly, steadily, guiding you back to yourself. And as this quiet returning continues, you begin to notice that time itself feels different, as if moments stretch wider, giving you space to actually be inside your life instead of rushing past it. And in that space, you start to see how much of your old urgency was never truly yours. It was inherited noise, collective pressure, borrowed fears that taught you to run even when there was nowhere real to arrive. And now, as that inner speed slows, you feel something unfamiliar yet deeply natural. A sense that you are allowed to exist without constantly justifying your place. Allowed to breathe without earning the air. Allowed to move without proving your worth. And this permission does not come from the outside. It rises from within. From the recognition that your existence itself is not an accident, not a mistake, not a test you are failing, but an expression of life discovering itself through your eyes, your thoughts, your experiences. And when you feel this, even faintly, the heavy story of me versus the world begins to soften, replaced by a quieter understanding that you are not separate from life. You are life, moving in a unique pattern for a time. And this realization changes how you hold your past, because the things you once replayed with regret or shame begin to look different under the light of awareness. You see how each version of you was doing the best it could with the understanding it had. How even your mistakes carried lessons that shaped your depth, your empathy, your resilience. And instead of fighting your history, you begin to integrate it, allowing every chapter to belong. And in that acceptance, a strange kind of freedom appears. The freedom of not needing to erase who you were in order to become who you are becoming. And as this freedom grows, your inner dialogue starts to shift too. The harsh voice that once pushed and criticized loses its authority, and in its place, a quieter, wiser voice emerges. One that speaks less in commands and more in clarity, less in fear and more in truth. And you begin to trust this voice, not because it is loud, but because it feels steady. Because when you follow it, there is less inner conflict, less resistance in your body, more coherence between what you feel, think, and do. And this coherence is a sign of alignment, the sign that your inner and outer worlds are no longer pulling in opposite directions. And when alignment deepens, your energy changes in ways you cannot always explain. You may find yourself needing more solitude, not from rejection of others, but from a natural desire to stay connected to this deeper current within, because you are learning that your presence is your power. And when your presence is scattered, your power feels weak. But when your presence is gathered, even simple actions carry weight. Your words land differently. Your silence speaks. Your choices ripple further than before. And this is not about control. It is about coherence, about being so rooted in your own awareness that you are no longer easily pulled into every emotional storm around you. You can witness without absorbing, care without collapsing, engage without losing yourself. And this capacity grows quietly as you keep returning to that inner stillness again and again, especially when life feels uncertain, because awakening does not remove uncertainty, it changes your relationship to it. You start to see uncertainty not as danger, but as openness, the space where new possibilities can emerge. And instead of panicking when you don't have all the answers, you begin to rest in not knowing, trusting that clarity unfolds step by step, breath by breath. And this trust is not blind, it is experiential, built from noticing how many times life has carried you through moments you once thought you couldn't survive, how many endings secretly made room for beginnings you could not have planned. And this remembrance strengthens your faith, not in outcomes but in the unfolding itself. And from this faith, a quiet courage arises. The courage to let go of roles that no longer fit, to release identities that once felt necessary, to walk away from paths that look safe but feel empty, because you are beginning to value aliveness over approval, truth over comfort, depth over distraction. And though this may sometimes feel lonely, it is a sacred loneliness, the space between who you were and who you are becoming. And if you stay present here instead of rushing to fill the space, you discover that you are not actually alone. You are in the company of your own being for the first time, without noise in between. And from this intimacy with yourself, your relationships begin to change too. Not always in who stays or leaves, but in how you show up. You become more honest, less performative, more willing to be seen without exaggeration or hiding. And this authenticity acts like a filter. Some connections naturally deepen, others gently fall away, not as punishment, but as realignment. Because as you awaken, you can no longer fully participate in dynamics that require you to shrink or pretend. And though letting go can ache, beneath the ache there is relief. The relief of no longer betraying your own awareness. And this relief is a sign that your inner compass is strengthening, guiding you not through loud signs but through resonance, through the quiet sense of, this is true for me, that grows clearer the more you listen, and the more you honor this inner truth. The more your life begins to feel like an extension of your consciousness, rather than an accident you are trying to manage. And this is where spiritual awakening becomes lived reality. Not an idea, not an escape, but a way of walking, speaking, choosing, loving, creating, resting, all from a deeper center. And you may still forget at times, still get pulled into old reactions, still feel lost on some days. But even that is held differently now, because something in you stays aware that you are aware, a background presence that never fully disappears. And this presence is your anchor, your home within movement, your stillness within change. And every time you notice it, even for a second, you strengthen the pathway back to yourself. And over time, these seconds weave together into a new way of being, one where you are no longer searching for life somewhere else, because you have begun to experience it directly, here, now, as the simple miracle of being conscious, breathing, witnessing, alive. And this ongoing return, gentle, patient, real, is the awakening continuing to unfold through you.